bakla. Ito ang pinakatahong at pinakakamot na bulak sa bilog ng lupa.
Paano ko na po yung resulta?
Ano? Kaya tanggap ka.
Ang tao to ay kitindi kung ano tawag ng waiver.
Hindi ako takot mo. Mahusgahan lang ang tao.
Wala sa baho sa Panginoon sa mga
Sa kadako sa kalibutan, makatultol gyapon sila silang salag.
I will show you something if you send the money.
Nak, narinig mo ako? Wait lang, ma. Para kaming basura dito, may tinapon lang.
Sapagkat ang araw na to ay inilaan na para sa'yo at habang buhay ay laging sumasayo.
Wala, bota na si Mrs. ngayon eh. Bukas ka na lang.
Handa ka na ba sa ating showdown? Girl, I was born ready.
Hindi man to bata nga lagawan.
Happy man ka. Happy ka.
Wala kalibutan.
Ano kaya nangyari sa mga tao, no? Saan kaya sila nagpunta?
Galit na galit at malaking dragon na may diwata na pinanggo.
Kon, ayaw nagtubuhat na balik, okay?
Mabdos ko.
Sa? Pag-sure, oy! Asa ko na nabi?
Magpapatuloy ako. Pwede mo ba akong samahan?
Binenta naman kasi. Hindi iniwan. Aabot din tayong lahat. Kahit iba-iba tayo ng uri.
Kuya, laro.
Sabi nga ayoko!
Kinakausap mo na naman ba yung mga laruan mo?
You should really catch up.
It's always been our goal to understand not just the needs of the industry in terms of development, in terms of programs, but to really address the structural changes that needs to be instituted. We need government's intervention. We need to work together. Private sector and government, we have to work together so that we can elevate our industry. And these policies are needed for us to thrive. And that's the reason why FDCP has been working with Korea, has been working with Singapore, has been working with Malaysia. We're understanding their best practices and understanding how we can adapt it to our local industry.
Our lab is an Asian lab, and the way it's a little bit different from, say other labs outside is that we are not just labs that concentrate on films that has to go to these big A-list festivals. We also want projects that can actually work within the Asian region, and so they're not like always the art house kind of films, but they're also kind of like, whether it be comedy or horror, that can work in a wider context of Asia is something that we are also very active about.
And not thinking that you're making a film for the international market. Make the film for what you believe in. Actually, those surprises are films that were not made to win Oscars. Do your films and then it will go where it should go.
Of sharing, I think, can help you grow, get more confidence, and besides make connections. For me, this kind of collaborative process is very interesting, and I think that's something, as you said, the two of you earlier, which has a kind of a very interesting impact, indeed also, because I think indirectly it does help the local regional film industry to be stronger also.
As a society, we realize with this pandemic that we cannot live in isolation. And the film industries and the TV industries cannot also be in isolation. We really need to sort of like find alliances with all the different industries that are affected and how we all come together to sort of like push our agendas forward. And the key agenda is how to have life resume again the way we had pre-pandemic.
For more details on IFIC, please check our official social media accounts. Facebook page, www.facebook.com/IFICPHofficial. Twitter, @IFICPHofficial. And Instagram, IFICPHofficial. To register for IFIC public sessions and masterclasses, visit our website at fdcp.ph/IFIC. Check out the full lineup of public sessions and masterclasses for this year's Film Industry Conference. Visit our website at fdcp.ph/IFIC. International Film Industry Conference Online 2021 is presented by Film Development Council of the Philippines in partnership with Full Circle Lab Philippines, ASEAN Rock Film Partnership, supported by International Film Commission Partners, Film Philippines Office, Korean Film Council, National Film Development Corporation Malaysia, Singapore Film Commission, and the National Federation of Motion Pictures and Contents Associations, Thailand. International partners, Cannes Next of Marché du Film Festival de Cannes, Hubert Balls of International Film Festival Rotterdam, Netflix, Purin Pictures, CFIC Lab, Southeast Asia Pacific Audiovisual Archives Association, Torino Film Lab. Local partners, ABS-CBN Film Restoration Sagip Pelikula, KTX, Philippine Film Archive, TBA Play and TBA Studios, Upstream PH, Viva Communications Inc., Livestream Partner, Digital IC3 Productions. Thank you for joining us today. Sit back and relax as we are about to begin. The International Film Industry Conference, or IFIC, first conducted by the Film Development Council of the Philippines, or FDCP, in 2017, aims to bring together international and local experts to share and discuss the latest trends, opportunities, platforms, and cooperation globally that producers and filmmakers can explore for the development, production, and distribution of their projects, with the intent of crossing beyond local borders. The IFIC strives to continue the synergy of the members of the industry by featuring experts and professionals this September 2021. This event will give a platform to further explore opportunities, challenges, and new norms in the film industry as we push and thrive to move forward in a global pandemic. Even with the recent challenge for filmmakers, producers, sales agents, distributors, and audiences brought about by the pandemic, the industry is adapting, and films, including from the Philippines, are still finding opportunities for global distribution. In this session, international distributors and sales agents together share their experiences, challenges, and new trends on the types of films and stories being distributed in these novel times. Our moderator for this panel is the Festival Director of QCinema International Film Festival and currently heads the Quezon City Film Development Commission. He is a senior faculty member and former director of the University of the Philippines Film Institute, where he completed his master's degree in broadcast communication. He completed his diploma course in filmmaking from New York University, year 1996. He is the former academic director of the International Academy of Film and TV and former vice president for Select Asia Pacific year 2009 to 2012. As a member of NETPAC, he has been a jury member in various international film festivals, including Busan, Rotterdam, Singapore, Tallinn, Vesoul, Istanbul, among others. As a writer-director, he has 4 feature films to his credit, including QWERTY in 2012 and Swipe in 2017. He is also a co-producer of some of the QCinema features, such as Women of the Weeping River, Cleaners, and Babae at Baril. Be inspired with this session with Ed Lejano.
Hi, good evening to all, and welcome to the second to the last session of the Film Industry Conference. And the session is entitled Local to Global, Behind the Scenes of International Distribution. And we've assembled a great group of people who will share their expertise as the session tackles how Filipino projects that were recently picked up by international sales agents and distributors get to share their insights, challenges, and new trends in getting their films distributed. In the face of these challenging times, it becomes more important for filmmakers, producers, sales agents, distributors to learn, to find opportunities for global distribution, and to adapt or pivot in this pandemic landscape. So, first off, let me introduce the members of our panel. From North America all the way to Canada, Michelangelo Masangkay. He started in the film industry in 2006, and right in 2014 he became the general manager of Raven Banner Entertainment, where he oversees the 2 Canadian distribution arms, Raven Banner Releasing, and the international sales arm, Raven Banner Entertainment, and the newly announced at the IFF, the production arm, Hangar 18. Most recently, Michelangelo also heads the film production program as lead instructor at the Toronto Film School, where he mentors students from pre-production through marketing and distribution. Hello, Michelangelo. All the way in France, Quentin Bohanna. He graduated from Sorbonne Law School with a master's degree in cinema and copyright law. Very important in this day and age. During the course of his studies, he pursued internships at the Bureau Sales and MK2 Films as international sales assistant. He also joined TF1 Studio in August 2020 to manage library sales of wide commercial hits. And since February 2021, he's back at MK2 as international sales executive, handling all rights sales for Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia, Australia, Latin America, Greece, Portugal, Scandinavia, focusing on new films from prestigious directors such as Celine Sciamma, Joaquin Trier, and Andrea Arnold. He's also assisting MK2 Films managing director on US and UK collaborations. And
Hi.
hello, Quentin. And the only rose among the thorns, Armi Cacanindin, my former student at UP Film Institute. She's based in Manila, and my God, if you talk about funding, she's gone through the whole route from Cinema du Monde, World Cinema, Sundance Film Grant, the works, Doha, Purin Pictures. She'll tell us all about it later on. And in 2019, her film won the Fipresci Award. Is this for Aswang? Yes. And her most recent film, direct from San Sebastian, and currently going in the rounds. Right now it's in Chicago. I'd rather call it Whether the Weather is Fine. But the debut feature of Carlo Francisco Manatad, which received funding for script development to production and post-production until distribution, and got a special prize at Locarno. And she's currently the head of Globe Studios for long-form productions, film, and series. Hello, Armi Cacanindin.
Hi, Sir Ed. Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Okay, so maybe to start, maybe a good starting point would be, what are sales agents and what is the role of distributors? Like, if you're a filmmaker, you've completed your script, you've obtained funding, you've shot your film, you're ready to go to festivals. A director or a filmmaker does not have to sell his own film, right? So maybe Michelangelo, what do sales in the supply chain of the film industry, what do sales agents do?
Okay, so in the supply chain, oftentimes, actually, just to clarify, there's oftentimes the mistake of thinking that a distributor is also a sales agent when sales agents are dealing with distributors. So that would be the simplified version, and then it gets much more complicated after that. So when you're dealing with a sales agent in the supply chain, they're there to represent your film into the international market. It's not have a distribution deal in place where money will exchange hands per se, but it's more that you are representing the film to garner distribution deals for that film to a distributor. Where oftentimes a lot of people mistake the idea of a distributor being filmmakers can approach a distributor directly. And the reason why this doesn't happen very often is because filmmakers oftentimes do not understand what it means to deliver a film for release. So that's why a sales agent exists between the filmmaker and a distributor.
Great. And for our friend here from France, from MK2 Films, which we deal with in QCinema, we've gotten some titles from them in the last few years. What exactly do distributors do?
So distributors will show the film, make all the promotion, and book the film in all exhibitors in the local country. And as sales agent, we're just selling the film to local distributors, as Michelangelo said. And we also accompany the film for all the festival strategy and represent the film, and to find the best partner in different countries, distributors to make the film being shown in most of the country possible, because a movie needs to travel and it's the best. And it's great to have different reception from different countries, and it's always a new journey when a film from Japan will be seen in Argentina or etc.
So MK2 Films is a French distributor, but it's not limited to French titles alone, right?
No, but we are not technically a distributors. We are sales agents, and also we have another activity which is exhibitors. We have 15 cinema, and that two activities are separate. The sales activity acquires films from all over the world, not only French films. We had, for example, in Cannes, a Norwegian film, and Bulgarian, but also like French film. And so me and my colleagues were selling them to across the world. But we used to do distribution 10 years ago, but we stopped that activity.
Okay. So Armi, as a producer for Globe Studios, aside from being a producer for independent productions, including documentaries and feature films, when or how do you come into the picture? Do you come into the picture early on, when the filmmaker has a script?
Okay, sorry. So as a producer, I come in very early when the story or the script is being developed. And of course, as a producer, until the film is made and until it gets screened or premiered in festivals, I deal with sales agents, and of course with other partners or co-producers once the reports or the monies come back, and distribute them to co-producers. So it's really the producer who deals with the sales agent, and it is most likely to continue, not just a few months after the film has its world release. Probably it's like that would be until like 5 to 7 years, depending on the term with the sales agent. Most of the time, I can talk about my specific experience for Weather. The Weather is fine, since we've been in different film markets and film labs. We were exposed very early to sales agents. We get to meet them even with just a script and introduce them our project. But then again, we know it's a first feature. I don't think any sales agent would go in would go on board on just the script level.
Okay, we're back. So moving on to our discussion, Michael here is also a film professor. I wonder what valuable insights he gives his film students these days for marketing and distributing their films.
Yeah, well, they're really dealing with first-time filmmakers who are entering a landscape that is filled with sharks And a lot of those sharks tend to be sales agents, producer reps, because we're always on the search for uh, talent and the next big film, and it can come from anywhere, really. That's why this industry is so wonderful, because you can go from zero to hero very easily. And oftentimes, when we find as a sales agent for both that I used to work for, used to really take advantage of filmmakers, and the more new they were, um, the more and talented they were, the more of a target they would be. Now I work for a little bit more transparent, or a little bit more more transparent company, where you really realize the difference between a lot of people and how sales agents and how they handle filmmakers. So my biggest insight when it comes to distribution for films is you have a general understanding of what marketing distribution is, meaning that most of you are probably creatives, and have a tendency towards just focusing on creative and making a film, when that's only 50% of the sustainability in this industry. The important thing is to have an understanding of where the film then goes and how it will get there through marketing and distribution. Now, if that's not your thing, or you don't have a tendency towards that business side of the industry, then you really need to find someone that you trust that will then navigate that for you, who will someone trust who can champion you. That was a major insight I would give.
All right. So, in the landscape of the film business, there are project markets, there are film labs, there are film markets. Maybe, Armi, can you share your experience about how, which is which? What is a film market? What is a project market? What is a film lab? Lately, we've been having all these activities in the Philippines. Thank you to FDCP. They've had project markets, they've had film labs, and film markets. But what exactly are these three disparate events?
Like for film labs, these are platforms where like the script can be developed. There would be sessions with mentors, like for script, for cinematography, for sound, etc. While a project market or a film market would be your platform to meet with co-producers, film programmers, sales agents, etc. And the organizers would arrange that for you, or if you have your wish list, they would try to get that person or that company to meet with you. It's important for participants to really research and be specific who they want to meet so that they can maximize these kinds of events. um, there are a few film labs or project markets like Open Doors in Locarno, that would eventually give prize money, or some institutions would also attend and have one-on-one meetings with the filmmakers, and later on attend giveaway prizes.
Sounds good. What about Quentin? How does your sales company function in film markets?
So we are participating in every films market that happen in the year. So usually before the COVID situation, it's a proper market. It means that we have a booth, that we have some meetings every 30 minutes with distributors, and we're just gonna pitch the film that we're selling. And it's usually it's like structured a year, and the market or the time where we are making the deals and the sales. The most important market for us is Berlin, Toronto, and Cannes. And but we are also traveling. In my team, we are four. We divide the world in territories, so we are also traveling into that territories in a more specific market. And and with the COVID, we needed to reinvent a little bit, so we organized online Zoom with distributors, but also we try on a marketing strategy to create some videos live, to share some scripts, some promos, some pitch speaking. So that was really challenging to really how to catch everyone with the film we are selling in the lineup, but through when everyone is at home. And so that was really interesting in that perspective, even though I'm kind of missing the physical market, because we realized that it was really important to have like a physical link. And like in Zoom, you only have 30 minutes with someone. In a physical market, you can meet that guy again. Everyone is talking to each other, so it's kind of making a good atmosphere to sales, but also sharing IDs and etc. So I just finished Toronto last week, so so yeah, another Zoom online market, but I hope it's gonna be better soon.
Let me ask you, have you sold an Asian film under MK2 Films? Or what's the likelihood of a Filipino film getting picked up by MK2 Film, for example?
We don't have any specificities in terms of language, nationality. Usually, we like to acquire films on script because we think it's really interesting to have in an early stage the project, and we can see. In terms of Asian directors, we had the honor to work with Koji Fukada, Amaguchi, and Naomi Kawase. But we're participating in like several co-production markets to spot some new project that might be interesting for us in terms of sales. And but this year we didn't have any Asian project. But
sometimes if they have French funding, it's also a factor where MK2 can come in to for the film to get picked up.
Yeah, it could help if there is a co-production, a French co-production, for example, or we just want to make sure when we acquire the film, even though it's on script, that the funding of the film is almost done, so we can just have the
Okay.
But
Okay, so before we go to the COVID era of marketing and distribution, let's go first to packaging your project for funding to funding agencies. And as we all know, in the Philippines, years ago, it was a trend here that film festivals give partial funding or seed grant to local filmmakers, new filmmakers, just like what Cinemalaya had started, Cinema One what used to do, QCinema has done. But of course, in the proper perspective of global funding, you have to go out there to seek funding overseas. Because if you want to catch the big fish, you have to go to the ocean, right? So, are all the funding agencies the same? If I'm a new filmmaker, do I go to Cannes right away, or you have to tweak your proposal and go to the smaller, lesser-known funding agencies? Maybe Michelangelo, since you're back, you can share your insights, how to tweak your portfolio for better prospects in selling or getting funds?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry about that for the disconnection here, guys. Hope I didn't miss too much. So when it comes to that, to address your first question, if you have the opportunity to go to any film market, especially if it's Cannes, I would definitely encourage that because there is a certain the experience is something that would definitely inform you in the filmmaking. And the reason why I say that is because when you're filmmakers tend to be very regional in their approach or their outlook, meaning that they just think about how to make a film for their region without the thought of an international market in place and or an international audience or what international distributors are looking for. And it also sheds a light, and sometimes it's very jarring to show how much of a commodity films really are. As beautiful and as creative and as much of a creative arts industry we are, it really boils down in a film market or a film festival that films are basically a product. They are a commodity that are then bought and sold in a marketplace. That's what a marketplace is. So seeing that as a filmmaker can really either jade you or give you form some great insights for you to inform your filmmaking because you'll see the interactions between buyers and sellers, aka sales agents and distributors, and how they just toss around movies as products. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing, in terms of the funding agencies and 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 those things, for me, I'll be honest with you, the only funding agencies that we've dealt with, because we produce films here in Canada, are our local funding agencies. So from a national level. So I don't know how it is for say Quentin over there in France, but I think it's kind of similar with Uni France. But we have Telephone here in Canada, and there's there's soft money that you can trigger based on your projects and the scope of what your project, or the pieces that you have to your project or to your production. So meaning that a script really isn't enough. You really need to have some attachments to it. And first and foremost would be a financial plan. So how are you going to finance that film? Everyone comes up to us, and I think probably Quentin can speak to this as well. And Armi, you've probably had other filmmakers approach you about producing their film. But one of the major questions that you're going to ask in our position is, well, how much? It's a wonderful script, it's a wonderful pitch, but really, how much is it going to cost for you to make this film? And how are you, and not only how much is it going to cost, how are you going to finance that film? How are you seeing that financing coming together to execute the film? Right? So everything's great on paper. How to execute it, wherewithal to execute it, pieces attached, and how are you going, where that money's coming from is oftentimes what we will look for from you pitching to us.
And so this is
so
where
it doesn't matter what film market.
Yeah. And this is where there are different types of funds that you can apply for. Like there's in the concept development stage, there's project development fund. There is post-production funding. There's a production fund. Which of these funds, Armi, have you availed of in your experience as in independent film productions?
For Whether the Weather is Fine, we're fortunate enough to get starting from project development until post production, and also just recently for distribution. So
From different
like
agencies, right?
yes, from different agencies. So for project development, it's really just researching and that funding to help us go to film labs. whereas for production and post production, that's really for production and post production. And then for distribution, it's really like the sales agent or the distributor that can access that, because it's also tied up to the distribution plan in specific territories. So it's mostly like packaging the film and the distribution plans on specific territories. Um, so that was that funding application specifically for, and it could be very different, like for that one, we're for whether it's fine, it's three territories: Germany, Philippines, and Indonesia. So those the plans are very very different. Let's say for Philippines and Germany, that's why it's kind of tricky. And I'm sure Michelangelo here in Canteen can also, share about like all these territories and how to customize, or how these distributors kind of customize plans depending on the market in their territory, and also the film that they represent, that they're selling.
That's why for filmmakers out there, don't ever read the contract. Leave it to your producer. It's so complicated. It's so boring. It's like it looks like Chinese to me. So your producers, leave it to them. But since the title of our panel is local to global, what how do you package your project? Like again, for Whether the Weather is Fine, it's a debut film, first film of Carlo Manatad, who's got a solid background for his shorts, also as an editor. How was it packaged in the context of local to global?
Mm-hmm. It is very local. Even the dialect is the language is Waray. But the themes of the film is very universal. Like survival and the concept of home and family. So I guess that is how we kind of package it in terms of when we were pitching it, and eventually like dealing with our sales agent and helping them like make our trailer. So once we got a sales agent on board, now we also deal with them or get their insights on how to make these materials, because now we get their perspective. It's not just like the producer and the director on the table discussing teasers, posters, etc. Now we get their perspective, because they know the audience or the market for such films. That's why it's really important that that conversation starts somehow early, not just when, 3 days before the world premiere. So that even the sales agents would know the film, and also the filmmaker. There are times that I've been asked, so other than the film, what are your dreams for the film? And it's, I mean, like the career of the director is also important. So sometimes I really request that if there's an invite for the filmmaker to attend the film festival, let's please avail of that, because it would, I mean, festival attendance would mean so much also for the publicity of the film, having interviews, all these press releases. So that dialogue is really important, that relationship, the producer and the sales agent.
And that is why um, Whether the Weather is Fine, when it gets marketed in the Philippines, it will be packaged as a Daniel Padilla headliner, since it's a big matinee idol here. And in foreign markets, it will be packaged as an art house Filipino film amidst a disaster background, right? Story of
Exactly.
survival kind of theme. But like for Quentin, for Asian filmmakers, is art house the way to go um, to be able to penetrate the festival circuit, or are there inroads by using genre like you get into horror or action film like The Missing Eight? Um, so, what are the trends now for Asian films, including Filipino films?
But my company is selling most of art house films, so I was always privileged art house film. Yeah, but it's important. As Armi said, it was really interesting. I think for a sales agent can provide a deep understanding on every territories to catch something interesting in specific territories, which could like spread the film the most ever. So I think there is no a type of trend. There is distributors in the world, they are only looking for a certain type of films, especially for genre, horror, or big commercial. But there is a lot of art house distributors, they want open to everything, every country, etc. And I think it's the role of the state agent to make links and to pitch the film and to imagine what in the buyer's mind would be interesting in their territory, and make the film works in Germany, Argentina, and that's the challenge and the difficulty, and especially for hot house films, because but I think it's important to have like a, I don't know, like a political film about in a really specific country being seen in like in another country, but like 6 hour jet lagged. I think it's that the action is that kind of the magic of it. But so yeah, but and especially, and thanks to the festival also strategy that can provide more visibility for the directors for interviews, and we're also organizing this. So yeah, so I don't think there is any trend. I think every film is a challenge and it's interesting. For example, in Cannes we sold a documentary about only two cows with no dialogue.
Yes.
So that was challenging, by Andrea Arnold, a famous director. But yeah, that was challenging because like two cows in cow language, and and I had the feeling for some distributors they were asking me what is the language, English, French, and I was just no, only cows. It's just no dialogue, and so yeah, that was a great experience,
And MK2 Films just picked up The Worst Person in the World, which is a Norwegian rom-com art house film. So Filipinos love rom-coms here. It's very sellable, but here it's packaged as it's artsy. It's in Norwegian. It has chapters, and so it might be a hybrid approach, since there's an element where the rom-com is a familiar genre to mass audiences, and yet it was premiered in Cannes and it was picked up by MK2 Films.
Yeah, actually, that project is a bit special. It was a co-production. We never do co-production except like two exceptions. The past year was Cold War and The Worst Person in the World. So yeah, we were really great. The film has been sold worldwide, and so we were really happy of it, because I think, and Armi said as well, like the universal thing in the film was love and how to project in your relationship, and I think everyone could cross that type of relationship at some point in their life. So yeah, so it was really relatable. So yeah, it was really amazing. So even though the Norwegian can be a deal breaker for some country, because there is not a lot of Norwegian on the international scene project, but yeah, it was a great experience. And the title is really catchy. Like, we're really privileged as a sales agent to keep the worst person in the world, because when you see, like, I want to see the worst person in the world, it kind of yeah. And actually, it was fun to exchange by email, because some distributors were telling me, how is the worst person in the world? And I was thinking they were speaking to me all the time. So there was like, so yeah, that's so. So yeah, we privileged. So that's kind of the strategy that we had around the relatable, about love, the actress, that she won the best actress as well. So that was also helpful to show the film.
And so we're keeping our fingers crossed that maybe QCinema will get to show Worst Person in the World, depending if our theaters finally reopen. As you know, our theaters have not reopened since the start of the pandemic, at least here in Metro Manila. And so this is our time to segue into the pandemic landscape and how it has affected every facet of our lives, not just restaurant industry, not just television, not just the music industry, but most importantly for us, the film industry, especially filmmaking, post production, distribution, and marketing. So, in this era of platforms, how should Army, you shot Whether the Weather is Fine before the pandemic, right? Okay. So, how will things be different now with festivals becoming hybrid, being online, shooting protocols are adds a chunk to the budget? How has things changed?
Yeah, for like festival distribution, um, there are, as much as possible, we do not want like online screenings yet. It depends on the platform and the security of the platform, but there are festivals that that's a non-negotiable. I mean, including Toronto. Um, and I mean, piracy is really like rampant here in the Philippines. But yeah, there's no other way to release films now, or even festivals, but to go online or hybrid. It's really just protecting the film and that constant communication with the sales agent, to share with you whether the weather had an online screenings for Toronto. That's their non-negotiable, but in our social media pages, we did not promote those, because we know that Filipinos might access it and use VPN and maybe camcord or something. So that's our way now of just keeping it on that territory or in that festival, knowing that eventually we will have a Philippine release here in the Philippines. And another point is it's really affecting festival attendance. I've mentioned this is very important, but how can you go to festivals even if they would provide you hotel and airfare, if you would be in quarantine here in the Philippines for 10 to 14 days? So that's like a huge effect now. Of course, cinemas are closed here in the Philippines, and even before, like for Aswang, we just it's a documentary that we released November 2019, and then when we were just picking up festivals, that was the time the lockdown happened. So we had to pivot also the festival strategy, and also um, allowing the film to be licensed on streaming platforms. Of course, we did not want that at first. Early or like middle March, we thought, this would just be 2-3 months of lockdown, cinemas would later on open. So okay, like everyone or co-producers and our sales agent agreed, okay, let's wait until June or July. And then July happened. Cinemas are still closed, so that was the time. Okay, let's start with the platforms. So that was one pivot that we had to do back then. And now that we're on year two, um, it's still the same old issue for the Philippines.
Well, we have a few questions from that were sent in. Uh, Maybe this is for Michelangelo. Is there a way to get deals with distributors or sales agents if a film has been made available in local streaming platforms, or is this considered spoiled goods already?
I mean, there's always a way. It just depends on, I guess, how skilled or experienced or how good a sales agent's network is with their distribution channels internationally. But for the most part, yes, it does spoil it because if your potential distributors or your potential clients are reviewing the film and they are interested in the film, and then they find that the film is on YouTube because they found it and it was burned off of a platform and then put online, that can really jeopardize the relationship between the sales agent and their distributor and their client. And that undermines the reputation of the sales agent to that client, period. So a sales agent is very, very wary of that. So if your film has been shown on a platform previous to even thinking about marketing distribution into the international marketplace, then you're already undercutting yourself because they will oftentimes just think, you know what, it's not worth the headache to go down this road to take on and acquire a film, to then package it and then pitch it to our client base, our distribution partners in the world, only to find out when the distribution partner comes to us and says, did you know that this was released on a little platform in Southeast Asia or in Philippines? That makes us look really bad. So we won't even chance that for the most part.
So it is a major consideration, right? So
absolutely.
Okay. This one is perhaps for Quentin. How complicated is it in dealing with IP rights that's being distributed in different countries or markets? Very complicated.
Yeah. But most of the film, I make sure that it's geo blocked. So yeah, but that was a huge issue in a way that's for and Armi, I think, upon it a little bit, but for like festival strategy, there was an issue because the film can be online and we organize online screening. And is it a fact that we need the film to be showed to distributors to make the deals? So, but we were also concerned of the geo-blocked and all the IP rights consideration. So before we accept any festival premiere or festival invitation, we just want to make sure that the film and the platform that the festival or distributors will use is completely secure. Because so. And we in some countries we have some issue with different so because we had scared that the film in another country is not released yet, and if there is any problems it could like break out the deal, and like, I don't know if I'm clear, but
And here's another one. If your film is in a foreign language or non-English, is it strategic to also have an English voice dubbed version and on hand? Like maybe case in point, 13, the Filipino anime on Netflix. you have a choice of dubbed version, subtitled. You can have German language, for that matter, or for whether the weather is fine, sits in not in Filipino but in Bisaya. Do you have a ready English dubbed version for that?
For weather, we don't have any dubbed version yet because maybe we don't need it. Um, so I leave it to my sales agent if eventually it will be needed. But what we did, like for post production, we made sure that we can provide the M&E tracks so that eventually if they do want they can just replace the dialogue track with that new language track, and all the other sound effects would still be heard. So like future proofing your film for all these possibilities.
Okay.
Yeah, delivering
So I
a
think
film is very foreign to a lot of makers, just to add to that. And that's a big issue for filmmakers is that they will make a film, no problem. It could be the greatest thing since sliced bread. But if you can't deliver the film, you can't get it distributed. So to Armi's point, something like if you don't know what an M&E mix is or track is, you should really, really figure out what that is and what materials you need to make, to be able to produce, to be able to get your film delivered into an international marketplace.
and I got a question here from a sales agent from Indonesia. His name is Petrus Cristianto. I want to ask about what is the future of the film distribution ecosystem. Please don't say there's no future.
Yeah.
Are we talking about is it all about platforms now when we think of selling or distributing a film? But in markets like Canada or France, which have partially opened the theaters and audiences are starting to come back, not yet to pre-pandemic levels, should we also always think that platform first because theatrical has diminished in the hierarchy of importance of film grosses, just like what happened to Tenet?
I Now it might sound a bit old school, but I'm will always privilege the theatrical experience, and it's good that but in France the numbers are not super good, but at least some people are going to cinema again. We hope that with the June release, it will show like in terms of strategy for exhibitors that people will feel more comfortable to go back to cinema. And so I don't think I think for the film distribution ecosystem, I think we should at the moment privilege the theatrical experience before the platform, straight to platform. That is my, especially for Hot House, that could be, it's yeah. So
Okay, right now, if you're a filmmaker pitching a new concept in this pandemic era, what consideration should a filmmaker have in marketing or distributing the project? Does it have to be low budget?
I think, with how things are now, especially during the pandemic, because there's such a limited ability to be able to release films theatrically, and there's such a risk associated with distributors putting a film, especially independent films, into that scenario. It works in both ways. So during the pandemic, a lot of output deals from studios for their studio films were pulled and held back. So let's say like James Bond, No Time to Die. That film was supposed to release right at the beginning of shortly after the pandemic started the lockdown. They've held that film back, and a lot of studios have done the same thing. So wherever cinemas were still open, it provided an opportunity for independent films to have a chance to be booked into a theater and then be theatrically released. As we slowly go back into the cinemas opening up in certain territories and countries, you're starting to see that independent films are getting less and less of an opportunity to be released theatrically. But there are obviously outliers, and it depends on the prestige and the hype that comes behind the film. So if it wins any awards in any of the major film festivals, then it's bumped up in terms of value to be able to be released. Theatrical is great, but I think the consideration for most filmmakers should be you need to be able to appeal to an international audience. The story has to be universal. Just like to Armi's original point previously, narratives have to be a universal theme so that people can it can resonate with more of an international audience. It doesn't matter what language it is now. With Netflix being digital and being able to have access to many territories in the world, there is an acceptance towards foreign language films with great narrative. And as long as the narrative is there, content is still king, and it will find a place and a home in terms of distribution, whether it's theatrical or digital or broadcast.
All right. What do you think about this slow death of the theatrical window? Disney has its platform. Warner Brothers had their own platform. When theaters were closed, do blockbuster films, will they be affected by this? Like, for example, Denis Villeneuve's Dune. Can it survive without theatrical?
I'm happy to jump in there. I mean, I think that because of the hybrid model now, I think you're going to get far more eyeballs. I mean, people are very much, especially filmmakers and directors, they're very much tied to the idea of theatrical, right? And very much so. They make films for a large scale screen. They want their films to be watched on a large scale because of the size of that production. It warrants that, right? So, Christopher Nolan's Tenet, and the same thing with Denis Villeneuve's Dune. They really wanted to be seen by audiences on a large scale format in the theater. But I think you'll find that they're going to probably distributors are going to make up a large portion of their revenue from digital. Just like when Trolls World Tour was released at the onset of the pandemic. They were going to go theatrical. And when you go theatrical, by the way, there is a split. Whatever revenue in the box office you make, you're not keeping that entire box office. The theater keeps, 50, 60, 65% of that revenue. And then the rest of that revenue then comes back and then waterfalls to everyone who's involved. So that be the sales agent, the filmmakers, any investors in the film. So that's why a lot of times it's a big risk to go into theaters and release theatrically, because there's a lot of costs associated with releasing into theaters. You have to think about how are you going to put digital prints like hard drives, DCPs, into the hands of each theater that is going to then show the film in the theater. There's a cost towards that. The cost of advertising and promoting the film into the marketplace is a huge amount. Advertising dollars is a lot of money, and that's why a lot of times you'll find that films will then double their budgets in order to promote the film. They have their production budget, and then they have their prints and advertising (P&A) budget that then is almost duplicate the cost of the production. So theatrical is great, but it also can be known as a lost leader. But it also helps towards pushing the film down its other release windows. You know, home entertainment, if there's still DVD and Blu-ray, it pushes towards that the film released theatrically, okay, people will still buy it there, or on digital, I'll still see it there. And it's just about eyeballs and people purchasing down the line on those release windows.
So for independent films or for art house films, theatrical in this new landscape may be a difficult journey for them, but there are avenues for streaming platforms that might be easier for them. And it can be a niche marketing that they can use. What do you think? Or should independent filmmakers always think of theatrical first? And then if not, or okay, maybe digital.
I think you think of your audience first, right? Instead of thinking about what platform it's going to be on. So you think about who your audience is going to be first. Who is your film for? And then because with digital, it allows accessibility for everyone to find your film. In this digital market with social media and the viral nature of content, you really have to be able to, just find your audience and be true to that audience rather than think, okay, is this going to be on a cinema screen, or is this going to be watched on a mobile device? If you think that way, then you're limiting yourself already. So it's better just to think of, okay, well, what is it within the scale of the production you're able to accomplish to best tell that narrative that you want to tell, and then the rest will fall in its place. But there are minimal, say, deliverables or materials that you're going to need to be able to then be on a cinema or to be on, say, a Netflix, right? So it's kind of you have to have a big picture perspective when you're going into film and development. Not so much what platform is going to be seen on, but at the same time, you have to prepare for any platform to be seen on, right? So, for instance, basic example, you're going to need a 4K master. If you don't have a 4K master, you can forget a Netflix deal. You can forget a digital platform deal, right? And then down the line, that will then address any of the other distribution platforms.
What about for Armi? When you are faced with a lot of pitches for new projects, are they all now for streaming platforms, or you still get project proposals for theatrical?
Most of the time, like distribution isn't part of that, like the choice, if it's gonna be in theaters or in digital platforms. Because basically we want to know what the project is all about, the story, and then who are the filmmakers behind it. Because I mean, we it we need to have a solid film and later on think of the platform, because if you have a good film, it will definitely be seen, either in different platforms. So like make the best film. So we want to hear the best pitches, the best stories, and hand in hand with the filmmaker, later on we can decide where it would be shown first. Because I mean, even if like there's no cinemas right now, then I mean there's also the possibility of film festivals. So like you can also have that release in cinemas because we want our films to be seen in the bigger screen, but also have that don't close your mind with a digital release. I think the best example would be OTJ, The Missing Eight, which had a film version that's in Venice, and then almost simultaneously, like 2 days later, the first three episodes were dropped on HBO. So I mean, there are no certain rules right now. Just make the best film, the best content, and just decide later where to screen those.
Okay. I wish we had more time to discuss this issue at length, but sad to say, there is a last session. So, as a parting shot, maybe we can hear from Michael. Will things get better in the very near future amidst all this pessimistic doom and gloom scenario we're faced in?
Yeah, I think it will get better, and the reason why I say that is because um, it filmmakers, storytelling voices from all over the world are starting to get a platform. They're starting to get noticed. I mean, in the recent, I would say, 2 years, Filipino films, just like Whether the Weather is Fine, are starting to get not just noticed, but celebrated on an international level. Whereas that wasn't the case, I would say, 5, 6 years ago. Um, and for you guys regionally in Philippines and Southeast Asia, um, you know, independent filmmaking is has got so many different avenues now to be able to travel, whether that be on the festival front or whether that be on a on a distribution front. Um, it just requires the understanding. There has to be a meeting. There's a meeting point. There's a rendezvous point between filmmakers and the sales agents or producer reps that are representing the film, right? Filmmakers have to have a better understanding of what it's going to take to have their film in the international marketplace through marketing distribution, and sales agents have to take more of a chance on taking on films that they otherwise wouldn't in the current marketplace. Just like we took on Mikhail Red's Arasaka. We just love the film. We love Mick Red as a filmmaker, but out in the international marketplace, people would usually say that's a hard sell outside of Asia. But that passion on the sales agent side there has to be more points of contact with filmmakers who do understand that international marketplace through marketing distribution as well.
Sounds great. And Quentin, will the festival circuit get better?
I hope, but no, yeah, I hope like we see that during the last year we really reinvent ourselves because our job is partly to travel a lot to meet people across the world, and so like the hybrid and online festival work, but I hope everything's gonna be back to normal. I think in Europe right now some small events are doing physical, and in Asia as well. But I think it's really important to keep the link and to feel that the business has to go with international exchange meetings, and that's something we need to privilege. Because it changed, and I think when we'll be all able to meet each other, it's gonna have the feeling to be back to normal. But
Okay. And Armi's parting shot? Will producing get better in the near future?
I'm very positive that it will be better. With all those events or talks or webinars that, I mean, like FDCP has been organizing, it makes all these like information available, or all these knowledge, or even just the connection, the networking. Although I would love, like after our talk in real life, we would have drinks later, or continue this conversation, but that's not gonna happen in the next few months. But the with all the efforts also, and the technology, like we can be talking with Quentin and Michelangelo, with coming from different parts of the world. It's like there's that tsunami of information, of connection, and I hope the young producers out there will take advantage of this. The past 3 days have been very like rich with information. Before, you would really need to travel to festivals to meet producers. Now you can just type look for a website, and get their contact details. So I'm very positive that the next few years would bring better produced films from the Philippines.
So there you have it, folks. Local to global, behind the scenes of this complicated, murky world of film marketing and distribution. And like for me, I miss the big screen. I miss my popcorn. I'm so tired of watching screeners on my computer screen. I hope theatrical is not dead. It's just pivoting. So when theaters reopen, I hope we're all there to support it one way or another. Not immediately, I'm sure, but I think things will be more optimistic in the coming months. So thank you very much, you all, for staying tuned, and thank you to our speakers, Michael, Armi, and Quentin, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much to our panelists and moderators for a very engaging discussion. Thank you to our dear audience as well for tuning in. We hope to see you in our next sessions. For more details on IFIC, please check our official social media accounts. Facebook page, www.facebook.com/IFICPHofficial. Twitter, @IFICPHofficial. And Instagram, IFICPHofficial. Check out the full lineup of public sessions and masterclasses for this year's Film Industry Conference. Visit our website at fdcp.ph/IFIC.